never imagined the day would come when my own grandson would grab my hand, look me straight in the eyes, and whisper with a trembling voice, "Grandma, you need to go, now." I didn't understand what he meant. I didn't understand why he looked so afraid. But something in his voice, something in his eyes made me trust him, and that decision saved my life. I was sitting in my kitchen, folding warm laundry fresh from the dryer, when I first noticed the uneasy look on my grandson's face. His name was Daniel, 13 years old, tall for his age, with those same hazel eyes his mother used to have when she was little. Normally, he'd burst through the door laughing, talking too fast, dropping his backpack on my couch like it weighed 1,000 pounds. But not that day. That day, he walked in slowly, quietly, pushing the door shut behind him as though he didn't want anyone to know he was here. I remember the air shifting around him, the way his eyes darted from window to window, like he expected someone or something to appear out of nowhere. "Danny?" I asked, still holding my half-folded towel. "Sweetheart, what's wrong? Did something happen at school?" He swallowed hard, his throat bobbed. "Grandma," he whispered, "you need to go." I blinked, confused. Go? Go where? Is your mom okay? Did something happen? No, she's fine. It's not about Mom." He stepped closer, placing both of his shaking hands on the table. "You need to leave this house, right now." A shiver crawled up my arms. The calmness in his voice didn't match the panic in his eyes. It had been years since I'd seen a look like that, pure, helpless fear. It reminded me of the look he had the day his father left for good, the same tight jaw, the same trembling breath. I set the towel aside and stood. "Daniel, sweetheart," I said softly, "you're scaring me. What's going on?" He looked like he was fighting an invisible enemy inside himself. His fingers dug into the wooden table, his knuckles going pale. "Grandma, please," his voice cracked, "just trust me." There was something in those 3 words, "just trust me," that held me still. My grandson was many things, silly, stubborn, loud, but he wasn't dramatic. He wasn't the type to panic over a little thing. If he was standing in front of me right now, struggling to breathe, something was truly wrong. I walked over and put my hand on his cheek. He leaned into it like he needed the comfort. "Tell me why," I whispered. He shook his head frantically. "I can't, not yet. I don't have proof." "Proof?" I echoed. "Proof of what?" He looked toward the window again. Outside, the street was calm. A dog barked in the distance. The wind rustled the leaves of the big oak tree in my front yard. Everything looked so normal, so unaffected by the storm clearly raging inside the boy standing before me. Then Daniel stepped forward, took my wrist, and gently tugged. "Grandma, pack a small bag, just enough for one night. We'll go somewhere safe. I can explain once we're away from here." My heart thudded painfully in my chest. I should have resisted. I should have questioned him. I should have told him that adults don't run away because a child says so. But I didn't. Maybe it was the way his hand shook while holding mine. Maybe it was the way his eyes glossed with tears he was desperately trying to hide. Maybe it was something deeper. Instinct, intuition, something ancient in a grandmother's bones. Whatever it was, I trusted him. "All right," I whispered. "Okay, Danny, help me pack." The relief that washed over his face was immediate, as though he'd been holding his breath this entire time. He nodded quickly and followed me to my bedroom. I grabbed my old leather overnight bag from the closet, the one I only used during hospital visits or holidays with my daughter. Daniel kept pacing around my room, peeking out the window, flinching at every car that drove by. His nervous energy was contagious. I found myself stuffing clothes into the bag faster than needed, my fingers clumsy, my breath shallow. "Daniel," I said as I zipped up the bag, "you need to tell me what happened. Did someone threaten you? Is someone after you?" He paused in the doorway, biting his lip. "Not me," he murmured. "You." My entire body went cold. "Me?" I repeated. "Who would threaten me?" He dropped his gaze to the floor. "I'll explain. I will. But not here. I don't know who's watching." A chill slid down my spine. Watching? Was he just scared? Was he imagining things? Was something wrong at home? My mind raced through possibilities. but he was already grabbing my purse, stuffing my phone charger inside, urging me toward the hallway. As we stepped into the living room, he froze suddenly. "Don't open the door yet," he whispered. "Look outside first." My heart hammered against my ribs. He gently nudged the curtain aside just enough to peek through. His shoulders loosened a little, but he didn't look relieved, only less terrified. "It's clear," he said, "but we need to go now. Hurry." I grabbed my coat from the rack, my fingers trembling. "Daniel, where are we going?" He looked up at me with those hazel eyes that had suddenly aged far beyond 13 years. "The motel on Brookside Road, the one with the blue sign." "But that place is—" "I know," he cut in, "but it's safe." Safe? Why a motel? Why that one? The questions tangled in my mind like knots, but there was no time to untangle them. Daniel unlocked the door and guided me outside quickly, scanning the street as though expecting someone to jump out at us. The air was cold, biting at my cheeks. The sun was dipping behind the rooftops, painting the sky in orange and purple streaks. My neighborhood, usually calm and quiet at this hour, suddenly felt eerie. Every rustling leaf, every passing car, every shadow seemed sinister. Daniel rushed me toward his old bicycle. "No," I whispered, "we're not riding a bike all the way there." He shook his head. "We're not. We're walking to the next street. Mom's friend left her car parked there for a few days. She said I could use it if what I thought was happening turned out to be real." What he thought was happening? My heart throbbed painfully. Daniel wasn't the type to speak in riddles. We walked quickly, staying close to the bushes, hiding behind parked cars whenever someone drove past. I felt ridiculous, comical even, but Daniel's grip on my wrist was tight, desperate. That alone kept me moving. When we reached the next street over, sure enough, an old gray sedan was parked under the street lamp. Daniel ran to it, pulled out a small envelope from under the tire, and retrieved the keys. He unlocked the doors and rushed me inside. "Buckle up, Grandma, please." He got behind the wheel. His small hands shook as he started the engine, but he did it with the precision of someone who had driven many times before. "You've driven before?" I asked, stunned. He swallowed. "I practiced with Mom's friend. She taught me because she said someone needed to know if things got bad." What things? What was going on in this child's life that I didn't know? But before I could ask again, he pressed his foot on the gas and the car pulled away from the curb. As we drove out of my neighborhood, an overwhelming sadness washed over me. I watched my house shrink in the rearview mirror, the house I'd lived in for 24 years, the house where my husband and I raised my daughter, the house where Daniel learned to walk, where he blew out his birthday candles, where he played with his toy cars on my living room rug. I didn't know if I'd ever see it again. My voice trembled when I finally spoke. "Daniel, sweetheart, please, I need to know the truth. I need to know what scared you so much." He tightened his hands on the wheel. "Grandma," he whispered, "someone is coming for you tonight." My breath caught. "What? Who?" "I don't know his name," he said, "but I know he's dangerous, and I know he wants something from you, something you don't even know you have." My entire body went cold. "What do you mean? I don't have anything valuable." He shook his head. "You do, and he thinks you know where it is." I stared at him, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst. "Where what is?" Daniel lifted his eyes from the road just long enough to meet mine. "The money," he said, softly. "The money Grandpa hid before he died." I felt the world tilt beneath me. My husband died 8 years ago. A heart attack, sudden, painful, unexpected. We were married for 45 years. He never mentioned any hidden money, never hinted at anything like that. "Daniel, there is no hidden money. Your grandfather never—" "He did, Grandma." Daniel's voice shook. "I saw the messages. I saw the pictures. I saw everything they sent Mom." I froze. "They? Who's they?" Daniel swallowed hard, his eyes dark and frightened. "I don't know their names," he whispered, "but I know they want it, and I know they think you're lying about not having it." "But I didn't even know about it." "I know," he said urgently, "but they don't care. They think Grandpa told you. They think you're hiding it." My blood ran cold. "Daniel, how long has this been happening?" He let out a trembling breath. "Months," he whispered. "They've been threatening months, and last night
They said tonight is the night they're coming to get answers. Silence swallowed the car. I stared ahead, numb, barely hearing the engine hum beneath us. Someone threatening my daughter? Someone threatening my grandson? All because of some supposed money my husband hid 8 years ago? Anger and fear twisted inside me. "Why didn't your mother tell me?" I whispered. He wiped tears from his cheeks with the back of his hand. "Because she didn't want to scare you," he choked. "Because she thought it would go away, but it didn't." He turned onto the dark road leading toward Brookside Motel. "And when I heard Mom crying this morning," he continued, "I checked her phone, and I saw the message." "What message?" He inhaled shakily. "We're coming for her tonight." I gasped, covering my mouth. Daniel continued, voice breaking, "And I knew they meant you." The rest of the drive was silent, except for the sound of Daniel's quiet sobs and my...
The motel room smelled of old carpet, dust, and something metallic I couldn't quite place. The curtains were thin, barely shielding the room from the flickering blue neon sign outside. Daniel locked the door twice, checked the peephole, then slid the chain lock across with shaking hands. He looked too small standing there, too young to be carrying a fear so heavy. I sat down on the edge of the bed, the springs creaking beneath me. My hands trembled in my lap, the weight of everything settling over me like a suffocating blanket. Daniel paced across the room, rubbing his arms as though trying to warm himself, despite the heater humming in the corner. He had always been such a brave boy, curious, fearless, bold. To see him like this, terrified, fragile, it broke something inside me. "Danny," I said softly, "come here." He turned, and for a moment he looked like a little boy again, like the child who used to run to me after scraping his knee, seeking comfort. He came over and sat beside me, staring down at his hands. They wouldn't stop shaking. I wrapped my arm around him. "You did the right thing bringing me here. I'm proud of you." He squeezed his eyes shut, as though my words made the fear worse, not better. "Grandma," he whispered, "what if it's not enough? What if they still find us?" My heart clenched. "Sweetheart, no one knows we're here. We left quickly. You said you picked this place because no one knows about your mom's friend, right?" He nodded weakly. "She's the only one who ever brought me here. No one else knows this place matters to us. Not Mom, not anyone." His words eased me, just a little, but something's still not at the back of my mind. "Daniel, you said Mom has proof. What kind of proof?" He shifted, leaning forward with his elbows on his knees. "Messages, calls, photos." He swallowed hard. "They sent her a picture of our house last week, at night, with the porch light on, and then another picture of yours, yesterday." A chill crawled down my spine. "Yesterday? But I didn't see anything unusual." "You wouldn't," he murmured. "They weren't trying to scare you, not yet. They were trying to scare Mom, to make her pressure you." I frowned. "But why not come after me directly?" He hesitated before answering. "Mom said, she said they didn't want you to panic too early. They wanted you home tonight. They were planning something." My stomach twisted painfully. "Daniel, why didn't your mother tell me any of this?" He let out a shaky breath. "She wanted to, 100 times, but every time she tried, they sent another threat, another warning. She was afraid that if she told you, they'd hurt you faster." The room felt smaller suddenly, the walls closing in around us. I reached for his hand, holding it tightly. "I'm so sorry you both went through this alone." He shook his head fiercely. "No, Grandma, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I should have told you sooner, but Mom told me not to. She said I couldn't tell anyone, not even you." "You did the right thing," I said again, squeezing his hand. "You did what you thought was best." He opened his mouth to respond, but a sharp tapping sound echoed from somewhere outside. Just a loose sign blowing in the wind, or something else? Daniel froze. I felt my breath catch. "Stay here," I whispered. I stood slowly and approached the window, pulling the curtain just an inch to the side. The parking lot was still, quiet,
empty except for a few old cars and a flickering streetlight. But I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Daniel's voice was barely a whisper. "Grandma, do you think they're already looking for you?" I hesitated before answering. "I don't know, sweetheart, but I do know we're safer here than at home." I let the curtain fall back into place and sat down again. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then Daniel broke the silence. "Do you think Grandpa really hid money?" I closed my eyes, my chest tightening with grief I thought I had buried years ago. "Your grandfather, he was careful, responsible. He wasn't secretive. He would have told me if he had money hidden somewhere." "Unless," Daniel said quietly, "he didn't have time." I looked up sharply. "What do you mean?" Daniel swallowed. "Mom said that the night Grandpa died, the very night, he called her. She didn't answer, she was sleeping, but he left a voicemail." I stiffened. "What voicemail?" He met my eyes slowly. "The voicemail saying he needed to tell her something important, that it couldn't wait, something he had forgotten to give you, something you might need." My breath hitched. "He never told me that," I whispered. "Mom didn't want to upset you," he said. "It was right after he passed. She thought maybe it was just fear talking or confusion. He was in pain. She didn't think it meant anything." I tried to swallow, but my throat felt tight, dry. What could my husband possibly have meant? What could he have had that I would need? Daniel continued. "Mom forgot about it for years, until the messages started, until they said Grandpa promised them something and never delivered." My heart pounded, a dull ache spreading through my chest. "Promised who? Who are these people?" Daniel shook his head helplessly. "I don't know. They used different numbers every time. Mom said one of the messages said Grandpa owed them money, a lot of money, but they didn't say why." My husband owing money? That didn't make sense. He was never reckless, never irresponsible. He would rather skip dinner than borrow money. "Daniel," I said softly, "your grandfather was not that kind of man. He would never get involved with dangerous people." Daniel looked at me with tears in his eyes. "I know. That's why I think they might be lying." I blanked. "Lying?" He nodded. "They might be trying to scare us, manipulate us. Maybe there is no money. Maybe they're just using Grandpa's name because he's gone." The thought chilled me more than anything. My grandson was only 13, yet somehow he was forced to think like this, to unravel threats, lies, and danger no child should ever have to face. I reached out and pulled him into a hug. He buried his face into my shoulder, breathing shakingly. "I'm sorry, Grandma," he whispered. "I didn't want you to find out this way." "It's not your fault," I murmured, stroking his hair. "You're protecting me. You're protecting your mother. I couldn't be prouder of you." He clenched to me for a moment longer before pulling away. "Do you think Mom will be okay tonight?" he asked, wiping his eyes. "Yes," I said, though I wasn't sure. "She knows where we are. She'll meet us in the morning. She'll be safe until then." He nodded, but his eyes held doubt. We sat together on the worn motel bed for a while, listening to the hum of the heater and the faint buzz of the neon sign outside. Eventually, exhaustion began to settle over him. His shoulders slumped, his eyes drooped. He was only a child, scared, brave, exhausted. "Lie down, sweetheart," I whispered. "Get some rest." He hesitated. "What about you?" "I'll stay away a while, just to keep an eye on things." He nodded shakingly and crawled onto the bed, curling up on top of the blankets like he used to during thunderstorms as a toddler. Within minutes, his breathing evened out. He was asleep, finally. I watched him in the dim light, my heart aching with love and fear. This boy, this precious boy, saved my life tonight. But the fear I saw in his eyes would haunt me forever. I rose quietly and walked to the small motel desk, pulling out my old flip phone. No calls, no messages, no threats. Not yet. But as I stared at the silent screen, a knot tightened in my stomach. If they were planning to come tonight, if they were truly watching me, what if they had already gone to my house? What if they had realized I wasn't there? My heart stuttered. What if they were looking for me right now? I paced the room, anxiety prickling beneath my skin. I checked the windows twice, then 3 times. I made sure the locks were secure. Yet no matter how tightly I wrapped myself in logic, fear seeped through the cracks. I sat down beside Daniel again, watching his chest rise and fall. He trusted me enough to risk everything tonight, and now it was my turn to protect him. I don't know how long I sat like that. Minutes, hours, the neon light flickered endlessly. But then, at some time past midnight, there was a sound. A quiet, sharp, metallic click from outside the door. My blood froze. Another click, the unmistakable sound of someone testing the lock. I reached out, instinctively covering Daniel with my arm. The air grew thick. My heart roared in my ears. Every hair on my body stood on end. A shadow passed beneath the door, and a low voice whispered through the crack. "Open up." My breath caught. The voice repeated, firmer this time. "Open the door, Margaret. We know you're in there." My name. They knew my name. My grip on Daniel tightened, and in that moment, in the suffocating darkness of that dusty motel room, I realized Daniel hadn't been afraid enough.
The voice on the other side of the door slithered under my skin like ice water. Hearing my name, my real name, spoken by a stranger in the darkness made every instinct in me scream. I pulled Daniel closer, my hand covering his mouth gently to keep him from making a sound. His body stiffened, still half asleep, confusion flickering in his eyes as he woke to my trembling grip. The person outside waited. Silence weighed heavy, thick as fog. Then came the soft scrape of metal against metal. Not testing the lock this time, trying to pick it. My pulse roared in my ears. I pressed my lips to Daniel's forehead and whispered so quietly my breath barely stirred his hair. "Don't move, don't speak." His small hand clutched my sleeve, fear blooming in his eyes as he fully woke and processed what was happening. But he didn't make a sound. He trusted me now the way I trusted him earlier. Another click. Then another. They were getting closer. I glanced around the dim motel room, my mind racing. There was nowhere to go. No back door, no window big enough to fit through unless we shattered it. And doing that would only draw attention, not from the police, but from the people trying to get inside. I moved quietly to the phone on the nightstand and picked up the receiver with shaking fingers. My heart dropped when I pressed it to my ear. Dead. No dial tone. Someone had cut the line, or chosen this room for a reason. Daniel's whisper was barely audible. "Grandma, what are we going to do?" I swallowed hard. "We stay quiet," I murmured, "and we stay together." Another shadow shifted under the door, another metal scrape. But then, a sudden, unexpected sound echoed outside. Footsteps, fast, heavy, running, and a woman's voice. "Hey, hey, get away from that door!" Daniel's eyes widened. "Mom!" The pick instantly stopped. The shadow beneath the door shifted rapidly as someone backed away. Then the sound of quick, retreating footsteps. Tires screeched somewhere in the parking lot. I waited, breath held tight in my chest. Waited in case it was a trick. Waited in case someone came back. Then, a frantic knock. "Daniel, Mom's here. Open up, baby. It's me." I rushed to the door, checked the peephole, and there she was, my daughter Laura. Hair wild, eyes frantic, chest heaving, her face pale with terror. I unlocked the door, and she pushed inside, shutting it behind her and locking it quickly. Her arms went straight around Daniel. "Oh my God, sweetheart, are you okay?" she whispered, kissing the top of his head over and over. He clung to her, tears welling in his eyes. "Mom, they were here. They were trying to get in." She pulled back just enough to hold his face between her hands. I know. I'm so sorry, baby. I shouldn't have waited. I shouldn't have let it get this far." Then she turned to me, and I saw something I haven't seen in my daughter's eyes since she was a little girl. Pure, unfiltered fear. "Mom," she said, voice trembling, "we need to talk." I pointed to the bed, my knees suddenly weak. "Yes, we do."
She sat down, Daniel pressed against her side. I sat across from them, my heart pounding, waiting for the truth, finally, to be revealed. "Mom," she began, voice cracking, "this all started last year. Do you remember when I got fired from my job at the accounting firm?" I frowned. "Yes, you told me it was because of downsizing." She shook her head, tears filling her eyes. I lied. I wasn't downsized. I was fired because someone hacked into the company's financial system using my employee credentials. My eyebrows shot up. What? But why would someone do that? She swallowed hard. Because Dad owed money to people he never told us about. "No," I whispered. "That doesn't make sense. Your father wasn't—" "He wasn't a criminal," she said quickly, "not even close. But, Mom," her eyes dropped to her lap, he borrowed money near the end, a large sum, to help someone." I stiffened. "Who?" She lifted her eyes and guilt watched over her face. Me. The room suddenly felt cold. What do you mean?" I whispered. She took a shaky breath. "Years ago, when I was drowning in debt after my divorce, I didn't tell you how bad it was. Dad found out. He found out I could lose the house, lose Daniel. I was too ashamed to tell anyone." My heart cracked. "Laura, why didn't you tell me? I would have helped." "You had no money, Mom," she whispered. "You were living on your retirement checks. Dad didn't want you worrying. He didn't want you to feel helpless. So he went to a man he thought he could trust, someone he worked with years ago, someone who said he had connections." I shook my head slowly. "No, your father wouldn't have done that, not without telling me." "He meant to," she whispered. "He was going to. But the night he had the heart attack was the night the man called him demanding repayment." "He had already paid most of it back," she continued, voice trembling, "but there was still a little left. Dad promised he'd pay. He promised he had something valuable saved away, something he never told you about, something he planned to give them the next day. That's what he wanted to tell me in the voicemail." "But what was it?" I asked, barely able to speak. Laura shook her head helplessly. "I don't know. They don't know either. All they know is that he told them he'd give them the box. And when he didn't show up the next morning, they realized he died. And they assumed you had whatever was inside it." My heart thudded painfully. A box. I searched my memory, scanned over years of shared life, birthdays, holidays, moving into our home, packing up his belongings after he died. A box. What box? Laura continued. "They thought I was lying when I said I didn't know anything. They thought we were hiding it. That's when the threats started." She squeezed Daniel closer. "He saw more than he should have, and it terrified him." Daniel whispered, "I heard them tell Mom that they were coming for you, that they'd make her talk." I covered my mouth as tears burned my eyes. "Oh, sweetheart." Laura wiped her cheeks with shaking hands. "I should have told you, but they said if I did, they'd hurt you faster. I thought I could handle it on my own. I thought they'd go away." Her voice broke. "But last night, after I didn't respond to their message, they said tonight would be the night. And that's when Daniel took your keys and ran to get you." Daniel lowered his eyes. "I'm sorry I scared you, Grandma. I didn't want them to hurt you." I reached for both of them, pulling them into my arms. "You saved me," I whispered into Daniel's hair. "You saved both of us." We stayed like that for a long moment, 3 broken people clinging to each other. But then Laura pulled back and wiped her eyes, determination sharpening her features. "Mom," she said, "there's something else." I looked up. "I searched Dad's old storage unit today," she said quietly, "the one he used for work equipment. I thought, maybe the box was there." My heart pounded. "And did you find anything?" She hesitated, then nodded slowly. Daniel and I froze. She reached into her bag and placed a small metal box on the bed between us. It was old, heavy, rusted around the edges, and unmistakably familiar. A memory slammed into me, a memory I forgot. My husband holding this exact box 20 years ago, sliding it under our bed while saying, "Someday, when the time is right, you'll open this." I had laughed, teasing him for being dramatic, but he never brought it up again, never said another word. Life went on, and I forgot. My breath trembled as I reached out and touched it. It felt cold, ominous. "Mom," Laura whispered, "whatever is in there, it's what they want." My hands shook violently as I lifted the latch. It took effort. The metal was corroded. Daniel watched with wide eyes. Laura held her breath. The latch clicked. Slowly, slowly, I opened it. Inside, there was no money, no jewelry, no documents. Just one thing. A small silver USB drive. Daniel blanked. "That's it?" Laura frowned, confused. "What is that supposed to be?" My hands trembled as I lifted it from the box. My husband wasn't the type to hide money, but he was the type to hide information. Important information. "Your father," I whispered, staring at the drive, "wasn't hiding money." "What did he hide then?" Laura asked. I looked up at them, fear and understanding rising simultaneously. He hid whatever was on this drive. I swallowed. "And whoever wants it knows it's valuable." Daniel breathed. "Grandma, what if it's proof? Like, proof of something those men did?" Laura's eyes widened. Blackmail? Evidence? Something he was protecting us from. I closed the box slowly. "We'll know until we check." "But, Mom," she protested softly, "if we plug it in—" "They'll know," whispered Daniel. "They'll know we have it." Silence fell. Then I reached out and took their hands. "Then we don't check it alone," I said firmly. "We go to the police first. We show them everything. We tell them everything. And we let them handle whoever these people are." Laura nodded, relief washing over her face. Daniel squeezed my hand. Just then, the sound of a police siren wailed in the distance, growing louder, approaching